Welcome to Hourglass Workshops and Conversations with Nancy and Cheryl. I'm Nancy Burns. I'm an acupuncturist in San Jose, California.
And I'm Cheryl Seaver. I'm a writer and blogger also in San Jose, California. And today we're having a conversation about conversations.
Right.
And,
Well,
and
Cheryl, you brought up something really good. You talk about people ask the first question, how are you?
yeah,
And they never ask the second question.
yes,
And you had presented that they're probably not very interested. Asking the first question is just a nicety.
yeah.
So,
It's and in fact, I did. After we had this conversation, I did some research on it, and someone referred to that "Hi, how are you? I'm fine" as a verbal tick. It's just something we naturally do. It's a benign way of engaging in conversation, which is okay. But in these times, I think we're all looking to go a little bit deeper, and and I'm a huge proponent of ask the second question
right.
and go a little bit deeper. And so, things like, well, how are you handling times? What's going on with you right now? What's the most interesting thing you've done lately? Um, you know, uh, what,
That's a good one.
yeah, right. We all think there's nothing to do, but yet we end up doing things. And how are we spending our time? And what's been the highest point of this time? What have you learned about yourself?
What's your observations about society? What
Yeah,
do you think about what's going on? How are you feeling about
yes.
all the unrest?
Yeah, and
And
how are you coping? What's been the biggest disappointment during this time? What's been what thing do you really want to carry with you forward? We've had conversations about that in the past.
right, right.
And what do you think things are going to look like? There's a way to dive a little deeper. And I know that, sometimes when I get together with people, I don't mind learning about books and, the latest movies and the Netflix series that we're watching and whatnot. But I want to go a little deeper, don't you?
Yeah. Well, it's just like you and I met for a cup of coffee outside, and we had nothing to talk about, and 3 hours later, we're still talking.
I
So
know, I know. It's like,
we
what's going
found
on?
something.
Yeah, what's going on? Nothing, nothing. And then boom, we launch into something. And,
Yeah.
those kind of conversations really leave me fulfilled. It soothes my soul.
Yes.
And I think in this time of quarantine and separation and lack of connection, to feel connected in more
Yeah.
meaningful ways has become much more important to us.
Well, and I'm not much of a telephone talker. I usually,
Really?
well, unless I'm talking to you or my brother Cliff, which I could talk to both of you for a couple of hours, but um, normally my conversations are brief and to the point.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm trying now to reach out to people that I haven't had time to talk to, mostly when I'm driving,
Right.
and have good conversation and talk about what's going on in their lives and, learn what's new.
Right.
Because, I mean, there's always people have interesting stories.
Yeah.
Everybody, I don't care how
Yeah.
boring your life is, you have an interesting story to tell.
Yeah, that's for sure. One of the little tricks that I learned is that I was having a conversation. This was several years ago with a friend, and she wrongly, but nonetheless, she accused me of not listening to her while we were talking on the phone. And actually, I was getting something out of the dishwasher or whatever. But it brought up a good point to where now when I talk to somebody, I actually sit down and
Yeah.
that's what I do. I'm very present in the conversation. There's a tendency to
Right.
think that we can multitask and short of driving, which I don't even, I rarely, I'm not driving not like you are now, but I rarely talk to people even on the phone when I'm driving. But I really,
That's a really good point because people can tell by
yeah,
your responses if you're trying to do something else at the same time.
yeah,
And I was guilty of that until you had that conversation.
yeah,
And I too have stopped. When I'm on the phone, I put things down and I talk on the phone.
yeah,
And
yeah.
if I don't have time, I make it brief, but I
Right.
still give them 100% attention.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, and I think we're a little more hypersensitive to that these days, to where I
Yeah,
think it is much more important to do that.
right.
So,
I
anyways,
agree.
what?
I agree.
Okay. Oh, good. I like it when my friends agree. Anyway, so if you have good questions that you ask, if you do ask, the second question, what kind of questions are you asking these days where you're getting some really interesting responses? We'd love to hear from you.
Yes.
So post your comments below, and until next time, I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Nancy.
Bye now.
Bye.